I stood in the middle of my sister's kitchen, clutching the glass casserole dish with both hands, my knuckles white from holding on too tight. The smell of my rosemary garlic lasagna still clung to the air, but now it was overpowered by something colder. Laughter. That's, unique, Aunt Denise said, forcing a smile before quickly passing the plate to Uncle Ron, who took one bite and made a show of grimacing. My cousin Heather tried to suppress a laugh, but failed. Claire, did you mean for it to be so chewy? I didn't respond. I just stood there, my dish still half full on the counter, surrounded by untouched servings and fake compliments that dissolved into whispers the moment I stepped out of the room. I thought she went to cooking school or something. I heard someone mumble. No, she just watches YouTube videos, someone else whispered. I'd rather eat cardboard, a third voice, maybe my sister Michelle's, said, muffled but unmistakable. I blinked fast, willing the tears to stay back. I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. It wasn't the first time they laughed at me, but something about today hit differently. Maybe it was because I'd spent all week testing that recipe. Maybe it was because I'd skipped 2 shifts at the diner just to make everything from scratch. Or maybe it was because I'd believed, even for a second, that this time might be different. Michelle's voice pierced the moment like a dagger wrapped in silk. Claire, you know I love you, but maybe next time just bring soda or napkins. You always try so hard. It's sweet. Just unnecessary. Sweet. Unnecessary. Words that meant disposable. Ridiculous. Embarrassing. I set the dish down gently and stepped away from the counter. I didn't say anything. I didn't even look at them. I walked toward the guest bathroom, locked the door, and let the silence wrap around me like a bandage. I didn't cry, but my hands trembled as I turned on the faucet, pretending to wash them, just to drown out the noise of the party. I looked into the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired. Her hair too frizzy, her lipstick already faded, her apron still dusted with flour. A joke. That's how they saw me. A joke who cared too much about things that didn't matter. But food mattered to me. It had always mattered. And yet all they saw was a girl who brought weird dishes, who tried too hard, who didn't know her place. The next morning, my sister's Instagram was full of photos from the party. Wine glasses clinking. My cousin's triple chocolate brownies getting rave comments. The takeout pizza with a caption that read, "Best part of the night, hands down." There wasn't a single mention of my lasagna. Not one. But in one photo, you could see it, just in the corner, on the edge of the table, half-eaten and forgotten, next to a pile of napkins. I stared at it for a long time. That photo didn't break my heart. No, that came later. It was the comment underneath, from one of Heather's friends. Who brought the brick lasagna? And the reply. LOL, my cousin Claire. Bless her heart. Bless her heart. 3 words that could gut a woman in the South and humiliate her in the Midwest. I didn't reply. I didn't even like the photo. But I saved it to my phone. Not as a reminder of failure, though it felt like one at the time, but as a timestamp, a mark in the timeline of my life. The last day I ever asked for their approval. When I was 9, I baked my first cake. It was lopsided, slathered in uneven pink frosting, and tilted slightly to the left, but I made it all by myself. I'd watched hours of Food Network reruns, pausing and rewinding, writing down every detail on a wrinkled notepad I kept hidden in my bedroom drawer. I baked it for Michelle's birthday, my big sister. The golden one. I remember carrying that cake into the living room like it was a crown on a velvet pillow. My hands trembled the whole way. Michelle was surrounded by friends from school, all wearing glittery party hats and blowing pink whistles. She barely looked up when I placed the cake in front of her. "Is that supposed to be a cake?" her friend Lexi said, giggling. "It looks like it melted in the sun," another one added. Everyone laughed. Even Mom chuckled a little, before quickly catching herself. "Claire, sweetheart, thank you. That was very thoughtful." Then she set the cake aside, not on the table but on a side counter, and brought out the store-bought chocolate mousse cake she'd picked up from the bakery downtown. "Just in case," she said. They all sang happy birthday. Not to me. Not for me. But I still clapped. I even took a photo. That moment never left me. It was the first of many. Michelle was always the one with the perfect report cards, the lead roles in school plays, the volleyball trophies on the mantle. I was the quiet one, the creative one, the one who colored too much, talked too little, and asked weird questions about spices and soufflés no one in my family cared to answer. At Thanksgiving dinners, Michelle carved the turkey. I set the table. At Christmas, she wore designer dresses. I wore aprons. Mom used to tell her friends, "Claire's a sweetheart. She's got a big heart. Always helping." But she never said I was talented. Never said I was gifted. Just helpful. Dad left when I was 12. Michelle blamed me. Said I cried too much, needed too much attention. I overheard her say once, maybe he just got tired of pretending Claire's weird hobbies were normal. Mom didn't correct her. I think that's when I started retreating into the kitchen. Because in the kitchen, I could be in control. I didn't have to say the right things or wear the right clothes. I just had to measure, mix, stir, bake. The food didn't judge me. It responded to care, to effort, to heart. By high school, I was baking full meals by the time my mom got home. She never asked me to, I just did. I'd watch tutorials late at night and scribble recipe notes into a leather-bound book I found at a garage sale. Still, no one took it seriously. When I mentioned applying to culinary school, Mom laughed gently and said, "That's sweet, honey. But it's probably smarter to get a real degree first." Michelle nodded. "You can always cook on the side, Claire. But don't make it your whole life. That's not practical." I ended up going to a local community college, majored in communications, dropped out after a year. I started waitressing, at first at a local chain diner, then a slightly fancier bistro. No one thought it was impressive. No one asked about my shifts. Michelle would joke, "So, how many pancakes did you flip this week?" And every time I try to bring a dish to family events, spinach puffs, roasted beet salad, strawberry shortcake with homemade whipped cream, someone would make a face. "They're interesting," Aunt Denise would say. "It's just different," my mom would explain to others, like I was a foreign exchange student offering exotic food that no one asked for. And yet I kept trying, because somewhere deep inside, I still believed I could earn their respect. I thought if I made the perfect meal, the kind that made people close their eyes after the first bite, maybe they'd finally see me. Maybe they'd stop seeing weird Claire and start seeing someone with skill, with passion, with purpose. But year after year, dish after dish, it was the same story. Ignored, mocked, forgotten. Michelle's brownies always disappeared first. My polenta cakes sat untouched until someone politely moved them to the edge of the table to make room for the pizza. I wasn't angry. Not then. I just kept telling myself I had to try harder. 3 days after the party, I got a text from Michelle. It was short, cold, precise. "Hey, just a heads up, for Thanksgiving this year, we're keeping it simple. No need to bring anything. Just come as a guest." Mom thought it'd be easier that way. No need to bring anything. It was a rejection dressed up in kindness. But I knew better. This wasn't about keeping it simple. This was about keeping me out of the kitchen. I stared at my phone for a long time, the screen dimming and lighting back up again as if it were asking, "Well, aren't you going to answer?" But what could I say? "Sure, no problem. I'll come, sit quietly, and pretend I'm not the family joke." Again, I didn't reply. Later that evening, Mom called. "Hi, sweetie. So, Michelle probably told you. We're doing something easy for Thanksgiving. Just store-bought stuff and a turkey from the market. No pressure this year, okay?" She said it like she was offering me a favor, like she was relieving me of the burden I loved. I finally said, "You don't want me to cook." A pause. Too long. Then, "Oh, honey, it's not that. We just don't want you to stress yourself, that's all. Last time, there were mixed reviews, and I just don't want you to feel discouraged." "Discouraged?" I repeated, my voice flat. "You know how people can be," she went on, her voice dipping into that let's keep it polite tone. "Everyone has different tastes, and we don't want any tension. It's just easier if Michelle handles the food this time." Michelle. Of course. Misboxed mac and cheese and brownie mix gets the green light, but the girl who slow roasts tomatoes for 14 hours isn't invited to the stove. Sure, I whispered. Makes sense. She sighed, relieved I didn't argue. Thanks, Claire. I knew you'd understand. You're always the easy one. The easy one. The invisible one. The one who never made a scene, even when the scene was burning down around her. After the call, I sat in my little one-bedroom apartment in Logan Square and stared at my spice rack. All labeled. All alphabetized. All pointless, apparently. I'd been planning my Thanksgiving dish for weeks. A Moroccan-spiced turkey roulade with fig glaze and orange saffron couscous. I had printed the recipe, bought the ingredients, practiced the technique, and just like that, erased. Unnecessary. Uninvited. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. But I felt something inside me break. Quietly. Cleanly. Like a seam coming undone. That night, I didn't cook. I didn't even eat. I curled up on the couch with a blanket, stared at the ceiling, and listened to the refrigerator hum, like it was the only thing in the world still willing to make noise for me. By morning, I had made my decision. I wasn't going. Not to Thanksgiving. Not to Christmas. Not to another table where my worth was reduced to too much effort and just bring soda. They didn't want my food? Fine. They didn't want me. Even better. I didn't announce anything. I didn't post a passive-aggressive Instagram story or write a cryptic caption like Michelle would've. I just disappeared. Thanksgiving came and went. I didn't RSVP. I didn't text. I didn't even open the group chat. On the day itself, while my family was likely carving supermarket turkey and microwaving box stuffing, I was at home braising short ribs in red wine and rosemary, just for me. The silence was jarring at first. No one called to check where I was. No one asked if I was okay. Maybe they assumed I got the message. Maybe they preferred it that way. But something strange happened that night as I ate dinner alone by candlelight, jazz humming softly in the background. I felt free. For the first time, I didn't have to brace myself for underhanded compliments or mask my disappointment behind polite smiles. I didn't have to explain what sumac was or why I used saffron in dessert. I was just me, and that was enough. The next morning, I deleted Michelle's number from my phone. Then Mom's. I canceled the Christmas flight before anyone could offer a late invitation, out of guilt. I donated the gifts I'd already bought. Wrapped them nicely, too. Some child would wake up to a deluxe Lego set or a plush throw blanket and never know they were once meant for a family that didn't know how to say thank you. At work, I picked up extra shifts, took on more responsibility in the kitchen. I started going in early, staying late. The head chef, Raphael, noticed. One afternoon, while I was prepping mirepoix, he leaned over and said, "You ever think about doing more than this? You've got instincts. The good kind." I blinked at him, unsure how to respond. "You belong here," he added. "Not just on the line at the table." Those words clung to me like warmth on a cold night. I started experimenting after hours, using leftover ingredients, writing my own recipes. Quietly, privately, I built a portfolio. I didn't show anyone. Not yet. But I printed photos, wrote notes, filed everything into a binder I called my secret menu. Every time I felt that ache, the one that reminded me I wasn't invited, wasn't included, I opened that binder and added something new. My silence wasn't sadness anymore. It was momentum. I stopped waiting for recognition from people who only saw me when they needed a favor. I stopped hoping Michelle would send a real apology or Mom would finally call and say, "We were wrong." I just moved on. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. People think withdrawal is weakness, that it's defeat. But here's the truth. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away, not with noise, but with purpose. I wasn't cooking for them anymore. I was cooking for me. For the version of Claire who stayed up till 3 a.m. studying recipes no one ever tasted. For the girl who made a lopsided birthday cake and got laughed at. For the woman who still believed food could speak when words failed. It started with a Yelp review. A glowing, overly descriptive, borderline poetic one that popped up for the bistro I worked at. Raphael printed it out and stuck it on the staff board with a bright yellow post-it that said, Claire equals fire. I read the review 6 times. The duck confit was tender, but it was the blackberry gastrique that lingered in my memory, layered, bold, fearless. I asked the waitress who made it. She pointed to a young woman on the line, focused and quiet. If she ever opens a restaurant of her own, I'll be first in line. I hadn't even realized someone noticed that dish. I'd made it on a whim, substituting leftover berries for the usual citrus. It was a risk. I hadn't asked permission. A week later, a woman came back, the reviewer I assumed. She was elegant, silver-haired, and confident in that quiet, money doesn't define me kind of way. She asked for me. I wanted to thank you, she said, smiling as I wiped my hands on my apron and approached the table. That's sauce. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I Googled how to make it, tried it 3 times, and finally gave up. So, I figured I'd come back to the source. I laughed, unsure what to say. You have talent, she said gently. Not just technique. Taste. There's a difference. One can be taught. The other, well, it's rare. Her name was Eleanor. She ran a small culinary institute on the north side, half cooking school, half mentorship program for underrepresented chefs. Women, people of color, immigrants, voices that rarely made it past the gatekeepers of high-end cuisine. I'd like to offer you a slot, she said. It's a 6-month program. All expenses covered. You have to commit fully, of course. But I think you're ready. I stood there, stunned. Ready? No one had ever said that to me. Not in school. Not at home. Not in the mirror. I was always getting there or trying or maybe next year. Now someone who didn't know my family, who didn't carry my past, saw me as already enough. I need to think about it. I finally said, voice cracking slightly. Of course, she smiled. But let me say this. When you know what you're meant to do, hesitation isn't humility. It's fear pretending to be polite. She handed me her card. I held on to it like it was gold. That night, I walked home with tears in my eyes. Not because of the offer, but because of how it made me feel. Seen. Not tolerated. Not dismissed. Not mocked. Seen. It was the first time in years someone looked at my food and saw me. Not the family's failed cook, not the trying too hard sister. Just Claire. And that was enough. A week later, I called Eleanor and said yes. I didn't post anything when I joined Eleanor's program. No big announcements. No hashtags. Just me, quietly stepping into the life I used to only fantasize about. But word travels fast, especially when it's the kind of news that threatens someone else's spotlight. 3 weeks into the program, I got a text from Michelle. Hey, I saw something about you on Eleanor Marchand's page. Are you working with her? That's so cool. It dripped with faux surprise. As if she hadn't already shared the post in the family group chat and circled my face in the photo with a sarcastic, guess who's suddenly Gordon Ramsay? I didn't reply. A few hours later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She left one. Hi Claire, honey. I just wanted to say how proud we all are of you. Michelle showed me your photo. I had no idea you were doing this culinary thing seriously. That's amazing. Maybe you could do a little something for Grandma's birthday next month? Nothing too big. Just a few things. She'd love it. We could call it a family feature. Everyone would be so happy to see you in action again. A family feature. Suddenly, the girl who wasn't good enough for box stuffing was supposed to cater Grandma's birthday? I didn't call back. 3 days later, I got a group email titled Birthday Planning, Let's Collaborate, with my name CC'd at the top. It read more like a script. Let's all come together and make this special. Claire, maybe you can bring your signature dish? The one that got noticed? We'll handle decorations and setup. We know you're super busy, but this would be a nice moment for all of us to reconnect and heal. Heal. As if I was the one who'd done the wounding. The thing about people like them? They don't apologize. They rebrand. They twist the story, so your distance becomes selfishness. Your silence becomes drama. Your growth becomes betrayal. It wasn't about celebrating me. It was about controlling the narrative before I got any louder. before the world saw what they'd spent years trying to bury. I didn't answer the email. And when Michelle followed up with a voicemail, chirpy, over-caffeinated, and thinly veiled, I finally blocked her number. I wasn't angry, just done. The kind of done that doesn't slam doors or write revenge posts. The kind of done that finally understands this. You don't have to accept an apology that was only sent to preserve someone else's reputation. One evening, after a long day of kitchen drills and mentorship sessions, I came home to find a thick envelope wedged between my doorframe. No return address. Inside, a handwritten letter, and a small, folded printout of an old Yelp review. The same one from Eleanor's first visit. But the letter, it wasn't from her. It was from a girl named Marley. I didn't know the name at first. Then I read the second line. You probably don't remember me, but you made me a sandwich 3 years ago in that tiny cafe downtown, the one by the train tracks that doesn't exist anymore. A memory stirred. Vaguely. Rainy day. Young girl. Shivering. I had slipped her a warm grilled cheese on the house after she counted out dimes and nickels and still came up short. You didn't make a big deal out of it, the letter continued. You just smiled and handed me the plate and said, "Eat slow." That one's magic. I never forgot that. It was the first hot meal I had in 2 days. My throat tightened. I saw your picture on Eleanor's Instagram. I recognized your eyes. And I just wanted you to know that one moment of kindness gave me the courage to believe that not everyone in the world is cruel. She was now studying at a community college, working part-time at a nonprofit. She ended the letter with, I know the world hasn't always been kind to you, but please keep cooking. You make people feel like they matter. And in this life, that's everything. I sat on the floor and cried, not because I was sad, but because I had finally received what I didn't even know I'd been starving for all these years. Recognition. Not for being strong. Not for enduring. But for being kind. All those years of trying, of failing, of being mocked, dismissed, erased, and still choosing to create something beautiful. Still feeding people. Still showing up with warmth. It had mattered. Even if my family never said it. Even if they never clapped or cheered or shared my wins. Someone saw me. Not because I screamed, but because I stayed soft. That night, I took out my old binder, my secret menu, and added a new recipe at the very front. Marley's sandwich. Sourdough. Sharp cheddar. A hint of honey butter and thyme. Simple. Comforting. The knock came on a Sunday. Late morning. Warm sun. Quiet outside. I was kneading dough when I heard it, a sharp, familiar rhythm. 2 fast knocks. Pause. 1 more. I wiped my hands and peered through the peephole. Mom. Hair pinned up. Lipstick too bright. A container in her hands, probably her famous pity lasagna. I didn't move. She knocked again, softer this time. Claire, baby, please. I opened the door just enough. She looked up, startled to see me so calm. No makeup. Apron on. Face open, but unreadable. I just thought we could talk, she said quickly. I brought you something. Michelle said you haven't been responding. And well, we all miss you. Grandma was asking. I know things got weird, but maybe we can just reset. Her voice trembled. I looked at the dish in her hands. Glass. Layers of cheese and sauce. Familiar. Predictable. Just like this moment. They needed something from me again. Maybe approval. Maybe proximity to whatever success they could now brag about. I can't come back, I said softly. She blinked. Claire, it's not about coming back. It's just family. No, I repeated gently. It's not. I didn't yell. I didn't list the things they'd said. I didn't pull out old receipts or try to make her understand. Because that was the old me, desperate to explain pain to people who had no interest in holding it. Now I simply stood there, whole, still. And that was more powerful than anything I could have shouted. I'm proud of you, she offered, voice cracking. Even if we didn't say it enough. I don't need it anymore, I said. Not the praise. Not the approval. I needed it then. And you weren't there. Silence. Her eyes glossed over, but no tears came. She held out the dish. I didn't take it. I'm cooking today, I said. For someone who sees me. She nodded slowly. The kind of nod people give when they realize they're not the main character in your story anymore. Then she turned and walked away. I closed the door, locked it, then went back to my dough. The yeast had risen beautifully. There's something strange about silence, the kind that follows years of begging to be heard. At first, it feels like a punishment, but then it becomes peace. I used to think love looked like sacrifice. That if I gave enough time, energy, food, smiles, eventually they'd see me. That maybe if I stayed soft and helpful, they'd finally say, "Claire, we're proud of you." But sometimes, you can set yourself on fire for years trying to warm people who never intended to come inside. And when you stop, the silence is terrifying. Until it isn't. Until one morning you wake up, make coffee, crack 2 eggs into a pan, and realize you're not lonely. You're free. And that ache in your chest? It's not rejection. It's space, room, breath. It's your soul finally stretching after being folded for so long. If you're watching this, if you've been mocked, ignored, belittled for the thing you love doing, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not invisible. You are not too sensitive. You are not trying too hard. You are not a joke. You're a storm disguised as kindness. You're strength wrapped in softness. You're someone who still believes in beauty, even after the world tried to make you bitter. And I promise someone will see it. Maybe not the ones you hoped. Maybe not the ones who raised you. But someone will taste what you make, read what you write, hear your laugh, or sit in your presence, and they will feel something shift. Because real light doesn't need to announce itself. It just shines. So keep going. Keep creating. Keep feeding the world your warmth, even if you have to eat alone for a while. One day, someone will pull up a chair, and they won't just see your magic, they'll honor it.